Oil and gas shortage, I think you are well aware. We cannot depend upon this. We do not have sufficient oil and gas. Even for the world, it is the situation is quite scary. And next about 50 to 60 years, they are estimating that the reasonably priced oil availability will be vanished. When it comes to renewables, which is the high hope, hydro is one. Hydro essentially is what the winds carry from the sea, deposit here on the mountain tops or in the form of rain, and then as it again flows back to the sea, you generate electricity because of potential differences in the locations. But then you can generate as much as water is available. So generally the load factors are around 30%. You can use these for about 30% of the time, and essentially the hydro stations are being used as peaking stations. They are run towards evening and the peak hours of the day. Wind is another sector in which substantial growth has been there. Today the wind plants are, the wind capacity in the country is much more than nuclear capacity, you should know. But then they work only when the wind blows. And wind may blow at odd time when you do not need power. The overall capacity factor available through wind is 17%. And it becomes difficult to manage the grid because when the wind blows, maybe your grid doesn't have load at that time, or you will ask some other station to shut down. Solar energy is another potential for this country, which has 300 to 310 days of sunshine and 4 hours of peak sunshine during the day. Of course, today the conversion efficiencies are low, but there is another dream that this efficiency will improve in coming years, and therefore it will become less expensive. And you can trap more energy per square kilometer or per hectare. Today you need 2 hectares roughly for each megawatt generation if you want to go for solar power. Through photovoltaic or through solar thermal. The numbers are more or less identical. Let us assume that all this is doable. Biomass will need a lot of plantations, and the country, highly populated, needs land for food production, much more than what it needs for fuel. So if you assume that all these renewables also we can tap, even then it is 250,000 megawatts, add to today's 185,000 megawatts. There can be some improvement which you will make through improvements in efficiency, in demand side management. But the remaining will have to come from somewhere, otherwise we will in very serious crisis. The remaining is expected to come from nuclear. Coal has already started seeing its limitations. Right now, around 43,000 megawatt of plants under construction do not find coal. So they have slowed down either their construction or their commissioning. Or the other option is there. Mankind survived earlier, so we can go back. I think we don't have to go back because nuclear is there, nuclear had now. What is nuclear? You all know whatever I am going to cover is absolutely known to all of you. The basic energy fact about nuclear power is that the fission of an atom of uranium produces 10 million times the energy produced by combustion of an atom of carbon. 10 million times. So what is the advantage nuclear? Number one, you need very less amount of fuel. Very less quantity of fuel. You don't need train loads of fuel. For example, for a 1000 megawatt plant to be operated, you need 30 tons of slightly enriched uranium, 4% enriched uranium, 30 tons, which can come in a couple of trucks. And you can operate the station for 1 year, and there is more to it, which will come to. And when you operate the fission, we said only 4% 4% of that is uranium-235, which is the fuel. When that fissions with the help of a neutron, that blue dot which you are seeing there, is the neutron which, when incident on a uranium-235 atom, makes it unstable and it breaks into two parts, which are fission fragments, or they are the radioactive waste products of the fission chain. You get these two products moving, trying to move out with high energy, and that high energy, because it is a solid rod, is deposited as heat. And that is the nuclear power you get. But instead of one incident neutron, you ended up having 3 neutrons. And to continue this reaction, you need only one of them, not the other 2. So these other 2 neutrons are spare neutrons. And these are very valuable. And that is what is reactor physics about. How do you manipulate these 2 neutrons in an effective manner? And we will see how they can be put to use. Uranium, as it is available in nature, has very small fraction of uranium-235, 0.7%. That is the part which we should in fact call fuel. Rest, 99.3 is not a fuel at all. But it happens to be fertile. Uranium-235 is fertile. That is, it can be converted to fuel in a reactor. It is this particular isotope, when it will absorb a neutron, that excess neutron which was available, 2 neutrons. If they get absorbed in this, it will form plutonium-239, which is a fuel, which is a man-made fuel available. Similarly, you would have heard a lot about thorium. It is not a fuel at all. It is not at all a fuel. It has no fissile component. But this is another natural material available in abundance in the country, which if you put in the reactor and those 2 neutrons you use very intelligently, you can convert this into fuels, which is uranium-232, a man-made fuel. India has very large amounts of thorium available in the country, but very limited amount of uranium. And in that uranium, 0.7% is what can be used initially. So that is only uranium-235. So the type of reactors which we have designed in India, which we are pursuing as Indian reactors, are called heavy water reactors. Heavy water is part of the ordinary water which you take. 150 ppm of this heavy water. It can be separated by chemical processes. This heavy water is already very happy with the extra neutron it has, so it does not try to absorb the neutrons. And if you use such a heavy water to cool, to whatever you want to do in the reactor, those 2 extra neutrons can be used very effectively. Hence in India, we use natural uranium as it is available, coupled with heavy water, and make reactors. And use those 2 neutrons very effectively to produce plutonium. And then we will convert thorium. I will come to that. So what is a fertile material? A neutron, when absorbed by a fertile material, which can be uranium-238 or thorium-232, will get converted into plutonium and uranium-232. So what does a nuclear reactor do? Let us again sum up. Number 1, the advantage is that it needs very small amount of fuel. Very small amount of fuel. In fact, we call that whole bulk as fuel, but in that whole bulk also, a very small fraction is fuel, remaining is not fuel. When I said 30 tons of fuel is required for 1000 megawatt unit to operate for 1 year, in fact only 4% of that is fuel. Remaining 96% is uranium-238. It's not a fuel, but it can be converted in the reactor to plutonium, some part of it. Some part means if I am consuming uranium-235, 4%, I may be able to convert maybe 3% of uranium-238 into plutonium. So 3%. Remaining 95% is still uranium-238. So I can keep on recycling, keep on reusing that fuel, plutonium and remaining uranium-238, time and again till I exhaust. And now you can calculate how many times, maybe 25 times, theoretically. So when I use 30 tons of fuel for 1 year, in fact, I can go on repeatedly using it about 25 times, theoretically. Actually, it will be less because there will be some wastage in the process. So 30 tons of fuel for 25 years for 1000 megawatt stations. That is the advantage of fuel. You can go on replenishing that fuel through this process which is natural, which happens in the reactor. When you exhaust your uranium, you come to thorium and start converting thorium into fuel. We have so much of thorium in the country that we can generate the requirement of this country for around 300 to 400 years. So energy is assured. And you don't have to put a lot of extra effort because the fuel contains itself the fertile material. You don't bring it from somewhere. Thus, nuclear reactor produces large power from a small quantity of fuel and converts fertile material into fuel. Fertile material, which is part and parcel of the original uranium, gets converted into fuel at a small rate. Thus, it is a source of energy for sustainable future. Now you can sustain. If you develop this technology, you can sustain, you can be sure of your future of electricity requirement for centuries to come. And hopefully in that period some other resource like fusion may come up. So even if the coal is getting exhausted in the next 40 years, you don't have to worry. This is what is the nuclear fuel cycle. Initially, uranium as it is mined in India, in Jadugoda mines and now in Andhra Pradesh, that uranium is converted to uranium oxide because of its metallurgical properties, which are, it makes it very stable. And then this fuel is put in the reactors, and as it comes out, you reprocess the fuel when it comes out. Reprocess this. Chemically separate out the waste, which is very small, which is 4% say, since I am taking that 4% example. The waste is 4%. When you use 30 tons of the fuel, you create 1.2 tons of waste per year. In the remaining material, you get some plutonium. You have produced some plutonium. You can take out this plutonium, mix it again with some uranium and again use it. Continue this cycle for many years, and sometime instead of plutonium, you can start adding thorium here with plutonium and continue the cycle for hundreds of years. So India has adopted this. This is called closed fuel cycle. That is, the fuel which comes out from here is being fed back. That is, plutonium, the fuel part is being fed back. If you do not feed back, this is called open cycle. And many countries are following open cycle. Well, this is what I have said, leftovers of fission reaction, which are highly radioactive. The waste, that 4% waste is highly radioactive. It has to be handled properly. But the unused uranium and plutonium, which we get by reprocessing, can be separated and can be used again and again till you exhaust the uranium. So in India, we are using closed fuel cycle. This is a technology which has been developed in India. Nobody is ready to give this technology to us. If you are following up what is happening in that 1 to 3 agreement and all that, this was the bone of contention, that we will not give you this technology, but we don't need either. We have. In fact, the nuclear power program in India was launched after this technology was successful in the country. Then only the program was launched. We don't have open program in which the fuel which comes out of the reactor is, we do not take out plutonium and reuse it. So with this closed cycle, we are reducing the waste per unit of energy produced, and we are able to use the fuel multiple times, assuring energy availability. When I said our dreams have been realized, I will come to this only, that India has developed all these technologies related with fuel. All of them are Indian. Mining to reprocessing and reuse. And based on this, India has a 3-stage program. In the first stage, you use the uranium as it is mined, run through the pressurized heavy water reactors which are operating right now. What you get in turn is plutonium and what we call is depleted uranium. Uranium which will have less uranium-235 now. Part of it has been used here. Mix these two and put in other type of reactors called fast breeders. They are named breeders, they have a different technology which do not use heavy water. The physics of these reactors is such that they bleed fuel. They produce more plutonium than they consume. It is like earning some interest on the money you put in the bank. So after a few years, you get whatever plutonium you had put inside, you can produce make another reactor because it has bred more fuel. The amount of plutonium is doubled, which is also called the doubling time. And many more reactors can be launched here. And when we have sufficient large number of reactors, when the country says no more power is enough, now you run these power stations for ages to come. At that time, we will add thorium into this and produce uranium-233 and make another type of reactor which is called the third stage program based on uranium-233 and thorium. And this can be run for 500 years. Well, that is based on Indian resources. You can as well today import uranium. And once we import uranium here, same thing follows. From that imported uranium also we are going to recycle. We are going to get much more power from that imported uranium as well. So this is the Indian power program which is very much on. The dream here has been realized quite a bit. The first stage of the program is this, the pressurized high water reactors. Indian pressurized high water reactors. And they became Indian somewhere here, 1974, when the first Pokhran blast took place, and the next day, the Canadians who were helping us in construction and commissioning of this plant walked away. But then there was no setback. Already sufficient R&D had been done. The plants were under construction for producing heavy water and fuel. It had to wait for some years, but thereafter there has not been any looking back. All these are Indian plants. Designed, material made in India, construction done in India by Indian industries, being operated by India, being repaired by India. And today we are here. We have just launched 4 units of 700 megawatts of the same design. This is all in this program from 74. And what all it involves? It involves all facets of engineering, all. Nuclear reactor requires expertise in variety of fields like reactor physics, metallurgy, chemistry, mechanical, civil, control and instrumentation. Computer-based systems are now being used everywhere in control and instrumentation, electrical, chemical, radiation physics, nuclear safety, etc. All that is required for producing nuclear power, and you work on all this, fabrication, quality assurance. All these are available in the country. And therefore, the Indian pressurized high water reactors have deployed all these things very effectively. And today, we have an integrated 350 years of operation. 20 reactors are operating for different times. If I add the number of years we have worked, is around 350. Safe reactors operation. And that is because this is what Indian industry has done. We are able to construct power plants in the same time as anywhere in the world, 5 years' time. We are able to make any nuclear equipment in the country. Any sophisticated material, these are zirconium materials made by Nuclear Fuel Complex Hyderabad. And of a technology which today some foreign countries are asking us that we should give them this technology. There is a seamless current tube which has been developed for the first time in India. These are some steam generators, curing machines, and these are the robos. I saw here in the exhibition a lot of robos, but this is a robo. It does the fueling online from a faraway control room every day. Every day it sends in fuel into the reactor and takes away the fuel automatically. And it is again designed and made in India. All this is done indigenously. The control system, instrumentation and control systems, the control rooms, computerized control rooms. All the latest technology is being deployed. We have used lasers in a big way for maintenance of our plants, developed by Bhardwaj Research Center. The training centers where the operators are trained, computer-based training centers, which are simulators to train the operators. And therefore, all these plants are running effectively. We are being reviewed. There is a World Association of Nuclear Operators. All the 435 nuclear power stations in the world have an association, and they visit each other, stay at each other's plant in a planned manner for about 1 month, and look at all aspects of engineering, operations, safety. So all our plants are regularly peer reviewed by them. So we may have foreigners coming to our plant, staying there for a month, and then giving us a report. What is good about it? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? They regularly get a report and keep on improving. And we also do for the other countries likewise. Well, this has been very much in the news. Udamkulam 1 and 2, where we have completed hot commissioning. Hot commissioning is simulating conditions of temperature and pressure at which the reactor is expected to operate without keeping fuel in the reactor. After this test is over, we find that everything is healthy. Fuel is to be loaded and reactor is to be started. And we are held up here because of some fears which the public has. But once it is successful, we are waiting to launch much bigger reactors. These ones are of 1000 megawatt each. But we are today negotiating with foreign vendors for about 1650 megawatt each reactors also. One unit 1650 megawatts, which will come at Jadapur. So that we can overcome the shortages which India has very quickly. Well, that was about uranium reactors which will produce plutonium, which will be used in the second stage in the breeder reactors. And India has been operating a small fast breeder test reactor, 40 megawatt, which will produce 30 megawatt electricity for many years. And it used a very unique fuel, first time in the world, plutonium carbide with uranium carbide. And this has been operating for now over 30 years. Based on this experience, a large power station, 500 megawatt unit, 500 megawatt fast breeder reactor, prototype fast breeder reactor, uranium oxide, plutonium oxide fuel is very close to completion of its construction. It will take about next 2 years for commissioning because we are doing it for the first time. It has to be done very, very carefully. There will be a lot of tests involved in this. But we are now into the second stage and producing around 500 megawatt of electricity. As soon as this construction is over, the Government of India is going to, in the next plan, going to approve 2 more 500 megawatt reactors of fast breeder reactors. And all these components again, which are very unique, demand very high accuracy, have been made in India, designed and made in India. The third stage, which will have thorium. For this stage, DRC has designed a reactor which again, the first of its type will be launched in the 12th plan, within 5 years, which will use thorium, and it is a demonstration reactor for use of thorium. There is no intention to go into the third stage immediately. You may go into the third stage maybe some 2 decades later. But in the next 2 decades, this is sort of a R&D exercise, a demonstration exercise on thorium technology. That you can close the cycle, you can reprocess the fuel, you know the physics, you know the materials. So what are the immediate plans? This is already right now under execution. 2000 megawatts of Russians are under construction, 500 megawatt, final stage of construction. And just 4 units of 700 megawatt construction has been started. So total about 10,000 megawatt plants, including the one under operation, exist in the country today. But then as I explained to you, this is a curve by Dr. Kathodkar, in which he has shown how up to 2050 what will be the shortages of electricity. If you look at this is the hydroelectric power. It cannot give you anything more than this, knowing the resources in the country. The non-conventional or the renewable sources cannot give you more than this, as per his estimates. Indian coal, at the most, can give you this much. The hydrocarbons, that is oil and gas, is this addition. This is the deficiency. It is as much as 50% by 2050. And 32 is the deficiency. So this is expected from nuclear. The nuclear is supposed to come to this level in the coming years. And therefore, our own 3-stage program, as I explained, then you import some fuel from outside by light water reactors, which Udamkulam and some more reactors. And this is a fuel which can again be recycled like here. You can recycle the fuel, and this upper one you see is the fast meter reactor using spent fuel from live water reactor. What you import is a 30-ton fuel, but you can use it number of times, and that number of times the is shown here. And if we do so, we will not have the energy shortages. The immediate program therefore is that by 2032, and this is what the Planning Commission report says, 63,000 megawatts coming from nuclear. And 2050 number, in fact, will get constrained only because of industrial and other infrastructure constraints. Whether the industry will be able to make a pressure vessel every 15 days, whether we will be able to get 2 fueling machines every 15 days, because every 15 days one power station will have to be launched, so our requirements have to be met. And so on. We need a lot of sites, a lot of locations at which power stations can be made. But then if this constraint is met, we can generate as much power as the country needs. In summary, the Indian dream for future, the availability of nuclear power in India is a mature technology and is poised for large contribution over a very long period, as long as 500 years. It is affordable energy and demonstrated to be commercially viable. The company from which I come earns a profit. It is a profit-making company, it is a dividend-paying company for last, and we have not drawn any money from the government of India for last 5 years. Whatever power stations we are making is through our own profit, and we take loan from the banks, repay it, and that is how we are working. It meets the social and environmental goals. There is zero discharge of any type, not only carbon dioxide, it is not anyway zero, but of any type it is practically zero in the environment. Sometime later we can discuss this. And there are very well-defined regulatory practices, the safety practices which are checked by independent agencies, including the international ones. Then why not nuclear? If all that benefit happens and the country is ready, it has developed its own technology. It has its own manpower, it has its own industries to do this. Still we find there is a resistance because there are certain things which are not clear about nuclear. So you can ask me questions on whatever you think is not clear, but what experience we have in the last few days is that is the concern about radiations. The man on the street is worried about radiation. The man living next door to us, and there are plants where we have been operating for years now. We have been operating for 41 years at Tarapur. People nearby are not worried. But at the new locations, there is a worry. And that is because there is, about understanding radiation, there is a gap. And this gap is very natural because the whole thing started with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The impression is that all radiation kills. I will very briefly in next 5-10 minutes cover this. Radiation is natural. We live in naturally radioactive world, all of us. We are all exposed to ionizing radiation from natural sources all the time, like here. We have a lot of radiations, and these are called background radiations. This radiation is always around us, whether we are indoors or outdoors. In fact, it is like God. You cannot run away from radiation. There is no place on earth where there is no radiation. It is everywhere. And it is again like God, that you cannot see this. Your 5 senses cannot know about it. That is another quality. And it comes to us from outer space, cosmic rays, and the earth on which we are living, both of them. The sky above and the earth below, both of them are giving us radiations. I am talking of natural radiations, which all of us are exposed to. Well, when it comes from outer cosmos, it comes in the form of protons. Proton particles are traveling from sun, stars, galaxies. The Milky Way is giving us a lot of protons. But as they enter our atmosphere, they interact with air and get converted to nuclear radiation like gammas, neutrons, electrons, muons. And they are around us. We are standing amongst them. They are surrounding us. They are hitting us all the while. Then the Earth. All the uranium and thorium I have been talking is actually coming from Earth. We have mined somewhere where some 400 ppm of uranium is there in a stone. We call it a mine. But some uranium is there, some calcium, sodium, iron. You will agree that it is there in soil everywhere. Some silicon is everywhere. Similarly, some uranium is there everywhere. Some thorium is there everywhere. It varies from 1 ppm to 5 ppm in all soil. Now, this uranium and thorium are not, there are the isotopes which are not stable. They decay with time and ultimately come down to lead, but over a very, very long period, longer than life of the Earth. That is why they are existing today in the mines. But as they decay, they are successively having other radioactive forms. So what is below our feet, the Earth, is not having only uranium, thorium, but many of the daughter products, you know all radioactivity, which are giving us radiations. So we are standing on radiations. And it varies at where you are in the place. Some place may have more uranium, some may have less uranium. We are excluding mines. We are excluding area where there is high concentration. But everywhere there is some uranium and thorium and its daughter products. And one of the important daughter products is radon. Radon is a gas which ultimately will decay to polonium and lead ultimately. It's a gas. Now the Earth cannot hold this gas. So it keeps on coming out from the pores. It just keeps coming out from the walls, which if they are made of bricks. If they are made of wood, then you are safe. But if somewhere brick has been used, it is releasing radon. Soil material has been used, the roof is giving you radon. Radon, which comes as one of the daughter products of uranium, similarly thorium, is a gas, it's a noble gas, so it migrates through porous material like the ground. And you will also see that when it becomes more porous, for example, just a very light drizzle will increase the radon. But a heavy rain may suppress radon. If there is flooding, radon does not come out. If there is snowfall, radon does not come out. So it keeps on varying. If the temperature is low, the radon will settle near the ground. If the wind blows, it will mix very well. So it keeps on changing every now and then. And your radon is giving you radiations from outside, you are breathing radiations inside. And as it is radioactive, it may decay inside your lungs. The radon has a small chance of decay as you breathe it along with air. Most of our actual dose comes from the decay products of radon because they stay inside our lungs. They don't come out. They may come out after some 10 more breaths or they may further decay to lead. These radon progeny are radioactive particles, not gases. They are solids and can be deposited in your lungs as you breathe. There they have some chance of decaying before your body can get rid of them, resulting in a radioactive dose. Well, body is a great device which has been created. It throws out foreign material. But for some time it does stay inside the body. There is an equilibrium level which can build up and it varies from person to person again. Well, the other radioactive material in your body is carbon-14. Carbon-14 is not available in nature. Actually, this is coming by bombardment of cosmic rays. Those cosmic rays, when they attack nitrogen-14, which is nitrogen is available in the atmosphere, some of that gets converted to carbon-14. And it becomes part of our food. Everything on carbon, we are using carbon-14. And potassium-40, which is a natural radioactive isotope available in plenty, and potassium we are told day in day out to eat potassium, sodium potassium. And this becomes part of our food. So we eat radioactivity. We drink radioactivity. Milk is having potassium. More than water, cup of milk, tea. In fact, bananas are having so many. You see all of this potassium we are eating. So we are eating radioactivity. And some of it stays in our body. In short, humans are exposed to radiation from natural sources. The sources include the ground we walk, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the entire solar system, everything is giving radiation. You cannot escape from this. Much of it is external to you, but some part goes inside the body, to your water, which comes from the ground and it picks up uranium and thorium in very small percentage. It varies. In countries like Finland, uranium is quite large in the water which they take. The food you eat, nature has put potassium into that. You are taking that potassium, carbon-14 you are taking, and radon you are breathing. So this, in fact, you should sometime read this report, United Nations Scientific Committee on Effects of Atomic Radiation. This report, if you read Appendix B, this gets revised every now and then. I must tell you that though radiations are there, the knowledge of radiation is there almost now 100 years. But the details of radon, etc., are evolving for last couple of centuries only. Cosmic rays, for example, today they are well studied subjects. Cosmic rays are minimum at the equator and more at the poles. You know the sun, the earth is tilted, and therefore at the poles you get more incidence of cosmic rays. In Europe, people see more cosmic radiation than what we see in India. Radon I have already told you. So if I just tell you the variations, radon, for example, could be as low as 200 magnitude 1 unit, and sometime later we will talk about what is the unit, microsieverts per year. 200 microsieverts to 10,000 microsieverts can vary, depending on what is the type of soil on which you are. And we are talking of normal soils, not high radiation areas. The average, world average as calculated by United Nations is 1260 microsieverts per year, you see. Our body, which is taking carbon-14 and potassium-40, it can vary from 200 to 1000 depending on the food you are eating, how much you are eating, and the place from where the food is coming. Earth, which is essentially uranium and thorium and its daughter products, 300 to 1000. Sky, that is from cosmic rays, 300 to 1000. So you see the variation here is very large. These are the average numbers, weighted average numbers, and the weighted average number of the world is 2400. So there are places, nominal places, where the value could be as high as 13,000 also. And in this report they have plotted how much of population is seeing how much of radiations. There are, how much population is seeing 13,000 microsieverts per year from natural radiation. Then cosmic radiation, as I said, if you go to Europe, it increases. If you go up the sky, go closer to the god, as we say in India, on Himalayas, you see more radiations. The crew which flies, if you forget about individuals flying, they don't fly, but the crew which flies sees 5 to 8 microsieverts per hour more radiations. The crew flies 500 to 900 hours a year, and therefore 4,500 or more microsieverts additional to that 2,400 average they see. Well, BRC has set up a network of more than 100 locations in the country called IRMON, Indian Environmental Radiation Monitoring Network, where they are monitoring these background radiations. The purpose is not only to monitor background radiations, but also to see if any world disturbance is getting reflected in India. Like what happened at Fukushima, India could immediately tell that there is no impact in India. And the data shows that the variation, it is never a stable number. It varies day and night because it is weather dependent. Depends when the clouds are there, it changes when the rains are there. So even the background radiation at a given place, even if you keep on standing at one place, is not a fixed number, it varies. For example, this is data from Bhuj, from the same. It can vary by as much as 300 microsieverts in the year. Nagpur, for example, varies by a similar number. Then comes the man-made sources and medical uses of radiation, which are becoming very fast rate. The use is, and that is again reflected by UN that the use is increasing. In fact, today's paper, if you see Times of India at the bottom left-hand corner, we have talked about the advantages of PET scan. And the PET scan can give you, CT PET scan can give you 15,000 microsieverts in 1 second. This is in addition to 2,400. And in PET scan, actually you are injected with a radioactive material, isotope, it goes inside your body and your body can be scanned for a particular damage. So you are having radiation from within, just like the radon or potassium for. So if we consider medical uses also, which everybody may not go for, because the range is 0, it could be 0 to 20,000 microsieverts you may take in addition. And there are so many other medical uses. But then there are locations which have higher radiations, like in Kerala. The beach sands, where thorium is there in the beach sands, the dose is at up to 70,000 microsieverts. So of course the average is around 35,000 microsieverts per year. In Iran, for example, there are a number of places in the world. I've taken only example of Iran. There are places in Brazil, in US, is 260,000 microsieverts per year. And people are living, for example, Kerala, we are so familiar. This is a place in Kerala. Their radiations are high, this location. And is well surveyed by Indian specialists as well as foreigners. And they don't find any increase in any disease, including cancer, compared to the national average. Both in men and females. And females, they are monitored who have continuously stayed there. Men may have gone out somewhere, sometime, but they have monitored this very closely and this work keeps on happening. Up to 70,000 microsieverts, they have found no issue. Now we come back to the nuclear reactor. If you just stand at the boundary of a nuclear reactor for the whole year, just stand there, don't move. What you may get is 0.42 microsieverts in a year. This is the data of 2010. The upper number where we have 6 units and some of them the older versions, 39.6 microsieverts per year. This cannot be measured because the variation by nature itself is much more than that. We have seen 300 microsieverts vary. So how this is measured, there is a special technique for this, which is very conservative. It is assumes that whatever negligible amount gets discharged from the reactors, this air, that air is being used by that person for breathing. If we discharge some water, he takes that water, not only he takes that water, he takes the fish, which may take that water. If you do all that multiplication, still this is a number which is 0. You see what variation nature is doing, this number is 0. And this is because, this is not only true about India, it is true world over. This is because the nuclear reactors use series of safety systems, layer after layer like a cabbage. And nothing comes out. It is like you can handle high voltages, you are all engineers, you know, that there is insulation. Similarly here there is immense amount of shielding. Nothing comes out, neither to the public nor to the occupied workers beyond the specified limits. Nowhere in the world the workers who are in occupation have left the job because Fukushima has happened. He knows that he is safe. He knows the techniques. He knows that what is built into the plant. Nobody has left the job after Chernobyl. We all know in the 435 plants of the world, which are backed up by, in India we have 13,000 strong staff of NPCIL plus 50,000 of BRC, plus IGCAR, all the number you put together is a large number. None of us suspects nuclear power because we know the safety which is built in. Sometime we can talk of those technical details, but same safety systems come handy in accident conditions also. But when we talk of this, the standards are very tight. The standards, the regulations are that reduce radiations, man-made radiations to as low as reasonably achievable. Always make them 0. That is the target given to the designers. That is the target given to the operators. And therefore, when it is so high, you ask people to evacuate. So let us make it again 0, then you come back. Because you see, the variation from nature is varying from 1,000 to 70,000 microsieverts a year in the country, in this India. Which is the safe limit? Which is the threshold? Regulators say don't ask all these questions. The number for you is practically 0. Don't go beyond it. So they have given a very, very low threshold that let man not, on God there is no law. Whatever he must have done is for our benefit. But when it comes to the regulators' principles, the principles are make it 0. When you read in the newspapers that in the Japanese press, for example, that the release has been 1,000 times of what is permitted. But the next sentence, it will not have a health effect. It is because that 1000 times is of 0. It looks that you have done it a gross violation, but the health effect is not there when you calculate that, because nature gives you much more. In fact, eating one banana per day gives you more than 39.6 microsieverts. One banana per day if you take, you get more than this vacations. But that is what nature gives. Man is not expected to pollute this. Thus, nuclear is in fact the safest amongst all man-made industries. We can discuss all the accidents, 3 accidents which have happened. Beyond doubt, it proves that it is safest. For us in India, nuclear power is required to fulfill our dreams. Without this, it's not possible to have the Indian dream. Thank you very much. Establishing the chain, 1:1 ratio. If you started with, say, 1000 neutrons, at any given time, there should be only 1000 neutrons participating in the reaction. Any extra neutrons should be removed from the system. Should not exist. So when this chain is established, 1:1, at a steady rate, it is called reactor is today critical. If you are having less than every next population, 1000 neutrons reduced to 999 and 998, it is subcritical. But if they become 1000, starts becoming 2000, it is supercritical, and that is the form. Right? So critical reactor is where you have established a steady rate of neutrons which are participating in the fission reaction.
So there is question about the decomposition of the waste of a nuclear reactor.
Very good question. I thought of covering, but I was going beyond my time. Nuclear waste is highly radioactive. And that is one of the issues of nuclear power. But the amount of waste is very small. Because the fuel we use is very small, therefore the waste is small, equal to the fuel we use.
Yeah, but there is no solution about it.
Yes. In fact, I have skipped some slides. As of today, this waste, which we separate out by reprocessing, which I said 1.2 tons for 1000 megawatt units, this is converted to glass. Glass. That is, you mix the silica and convert to glass. What are the properties of glass? It will not now dissolve in water. Nothing can happen to this. It is a stable matrix, but that it can crack. So it is converted to glass after the heat itself is so much reduced. At that time, you convert it to glass. In case there is a glass cylinder made, put this cylinder into a stainless steel container and seal the container. This is at the moment being stored in what is we call near surface locations. It is a turbo, and on which there are holes in the floor, which we call it tide holes. In that cylinders are put, and all around the holes, the area is monitored for radiation, whether any water is coming in on this. Since the waste is very small, today in a room of this size, in fact, one corner has been filled, and it will take years for this room to get filled. But then this is not the final place for it. The final place will be a very deep location in the earth, which is stable. And such locations in the world and the country are being experimented with right now. The stability is required in terms of that with the heat which is there in the waste, we should not damage the rocks, and there should not be any water. Could be as deep as 2 kilometers below the earth. And that you should have sufficient waste to open such a facility, because it will cost money. So that is the solution as of today. But then the third stage, the technology on which DRC is very actively working, is called accelerated driven system. You generate protons from a proton source. We accelerate the protons in an accelerator, and then generate neutrons and bombard the waste with this. The life of the waste will come down. The whole world is working on this. The life of the waste will come down. It is called ADS systems. But it will take, it is a dream for you. We have reached the glass. Today the waste is embedded in glass, stored in a safe.
So one more question.
Yes, please.
So if we are facing radiation by nature so much nature radiation we are facing, then why it is harmful the radiation coming out from the uranium and all that?
See, we are living in what temperature ranges in the world? In India, what is the range of temperature? Environmental temperature.
From 12 degree to 45 degrees.
2 to 45 degrees. We know that what it all does to us. But can you imagine if the temperature becomes 60 degrees? What will happen? We don't know. So there is some threshold beyond which something will happen. We very clearly know that in fire a lot of damage will happen. Similarly, we also know where a lot of damage will happen. That is called 500 Rem dose, at which 50% of the people will die. But that's a very high number. Where the threshold exists is a point of debate. And unfortunately, no experiment can be run to find out that threshold. Because we are all living with radiations. The experiment cannot be run. It is not possible that somebody you exclude from radiation. There is no place where you can create. So it is based on data. And the data as of now, scientific data as of now, is quite confusing. When you do experiments on small mammals and all that, the results are different. When you do it on human body, the results are totally different. Because of the recovery. And our body is recovering normal. The temperature itself is damaging our cells, but they are recovering. So there is a recovery mechanism in the body, which also varies from person to person. So which is a safe threshold beyond which the damage done by any means, temperature or radiations or anything, for that matter, chemical carcinogenics, will not be recovered by the body. That number is not precisely known. In absence of those numbers, the criteria is that you keep it as low as possible. There are some publications which say that up to some level, in fact, radiations could be beneficial. And the numbers could be around 10,000 microsieverts per year. But nobody is taking this right now. There are numbers that people say that it could be beneficial to the body. I must tell you that food is irradiated. The medical syringes or many things, injections which you are using are actually irradiated so that they are pure, in the purest form. America was not importing mangoes from India, and there was a lot of demand in America that we must buy Indian mangoes, they are so tasty. But they were not doing it. They said, no, we don't know what it contains. So for last, now I think 3-4 years, we are irradiating mangoes in Maharashtra in a place called Nasanggaon. And then they are being exported to US after irradiation. So there is some benefit, but what is the threshold is still under scientific debate. So as far as it is in a debate, you keep it low. I must also say that I have told you certain things and don't get overawed. These are the natural isotopes, carbon 14 and potassium 40 for example, or whatever radon has given us in our body. But nuclear reactor produces other isotopes. Some of them are being used in the nuclear medicines. But we do not know impact of each and every on the body. If they go in, externally they will be all identical. So in the absence of this knowledge, it is best to play safe. And we know that we are safe. The 435 reactors which are operating, where the people who work inside see about 20,000 microsieverts per year, that is the limit today. At earlier days it used to be higher. It started with 15,000 microsieverts per year. It was reduced to 1/3, to again 1/3. Just ad hoc. Since we are able to improve it, why not? So today it is 20,000 microsieverts per year. Very large number of people have seen this radiation. Very large number of people, their health is being monitored. And we know that there is no impact. So could be this is the threshold. We don't know. And earlier many people have seen 50,000 microsieverts a year. That was the norm earlier. And nothing has happened to those people. But the attempt in nuclear technology is as low as reasonably safe. If by design you can make the improvements, do it. Then you cannot go back to higher number again. You are restricted. Yes, please.
Sir, what would be happen if terrorist attack or any kind of earthquake will happen at the plant site?
Yeah. an earthquake? I will take the second question first. What is an earthquake?
The vibration of Earth.
Vibration of the earth. You forget about nuclear reactor. You can design an antenna or automobile for vibrations. Is it being designed? It is being designed. The antennas are mounted on army trucks and they go in the places where there are no roads. Right? Automobile plus antenna both have some mechanism to withstand that vibrations, which are much higher than earthquakes. In fact, Bombay roads, when you travel in monsoon, the shocks which you see in your automobiles are much stronger than what the earthquakes give you. So you can design. It is a challenge to the designer and it can be designed. You should not falter on what is the magnitude of earthquake which is about to come. Which is a science plus art and it has to depend on historical data. That is one part of it. And a nuclear reactor, unlike an automobile, will have very large number of components. You should not miss somewhere. So your quality assurance technique should be such that you have designed each and every component which requires to be designed to withstand earthquake. If you can design an automobile, you can design a nuclear reactor. There is no difference. It is not a difficult technology at all. But you have to work in great details. That is all. Coming to terrorism, which is a problem for us very especially, we have arrangements. And they cannot be discussed. Right? And these have been appreciated by when some other outsiders come and visit us. For example, a very senior, I will not name, but said senior person came from US and I was accompanying him to Tarapur. He wanted to go inside the reactor. I said, no, please, you cannot go. He said, nobody in the world has refused me. He was very much upset with me. I told you, we do not allow foreigners without permission from ministry. You cannot go inside. You can see what is peripheral outside, but I cannot allow you. Visibly, he was very much upset. But when I went to US a couple of years later, I was told that he gave a fantastic report in India. That their security is so tight that they don't worry whether there is a VIP or not. So there are mechanisms built in. And this terrorism is such a thing that each tries to win over the other. So we have to keep on upgrading ourselves. Right? Yes, please.
Even if we are making new plants having 1000 megawatt, but the energy we need in upcoming years, can we fulfill it only on the basis of nuclear, because we will need so many plants and it will be very much costly for India.
Well, number one, nuclear plants, as I said, since we have to use the spent fuel, you have to take it out, reprocess, use it. The multiplication effect comes slowly. It does not immediately come. There was suddenly the nuclear power cannot expand. It will take at least 1 decade to expand in scale. And therefore, the other power sources like coal, like oil, gas, hydro, they have to participate. In fact, none of the renewable sources should be given up. We should use them to the maximum, but they have their limitations. Within those limitations, a hybrid system has to be arranged, which can supply you power 24/7. Plus these nature-given loads which are monsoon dependent, which are dependent on the day shine, and so on. So this has to be ultimately by 2050, there will be a mixed arrangement all over the world. Nuclear plus renewables. And as much renewables as possible we must use. And somewhere the limit has to be drawn. Somewhere we have to find out that we must live within this power. We cannot go on making, we are getting addicted to energy. This addiction has to be stopped somewhere.
I take this opportunity to thank Mr. S.A. Bhardwaj for taking time off his busy schedule and giving a lecture here at Techfest. Thank you very much, sir. I want to give a small token of gratitude to Mr. Bhardwaj.